Let's Get Down to Business is presented by Bravo, the marketing arm of Ash Brokerage Corporation, the practice enhancement company. All this week, it's individual long-term care insurance. And on today's show, long-term care claims. And with me today is nationally recognized long-term care expert, Maria Sarchi. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to day 2 of our long-term care individual series, Maria. And I appreciate your passion, your knowledge for our product. And I'm hoping that our advisors go, hey, I've been trying to look at how to enter the senior marketplace. I'm really not doing that much in senior market. This could be the play. And I've noticed the way you talk about it. It's not so much economical. It's not the math of the premiums. All those things will have to be attended to sooner or later. But you're talking about the emotional impact for seniors. And I think this is the way to introduce this.
Yes.
This dignity issue that you were talking about in yesterday's show.
There are all kinds of studies that I see and read about where care planning is concerned. And one of the things that we know is that as seniors are surveyed, one of the things that they want later on in life is to be able to be in the comforts of their own home and to be in touch with family and friends. And so when you think about an inevitable possibility where somebody might have a care event, there's no downside that I can see to at least creating some awareness from the producer's perspective to say to their client, have you thought about? I mean, there's no downside to it. And more times than not, what I hear from the producers that I work with is that my client didn't know that I could help them with it. And yes, my client is concerned about it. Or, gee, my client had a friend or a family member that went through it and now they're thinking about it. Mm-hmm. So sometimes just opening up that question, Steve, can really make all the difference.
We talked about yesterday about the activities of daily living and how most policies are triggered by 2 ADLs.
Yes.
The incapacity to perform any of those 2. Mm-hmm. But when we're talking about that, I keep thinking, do I tie the ADLs, this performance issue of these 6 behaviors, do I tie that to how long I wait for the elimination period? How do I construct a policy, a design? So does that matter?
Well, it should be considered. I don't know that identifying which ADLs might go first would have an impact on how long of an elimination period you choose. For me, I think the elimination period comes more down to the funds or the premium for cost. The shorter the waiting period, the higher the premium for these types of policies. Where ADLs are concerned and where we look at what type of policy benefit I want, it really comes down to peace of mind. It comes down to knowing what the client might have available to them to help cover some of the costs during that waiting period itself.
When I think of the 2 out of 6 ADLs, most of our contracts address that issue. When I'm triggering an event and I'm at home, because I'm trying to fantasize my own retirement here by saying, Steve, I don't want to go to a nursing home confinement. I don't. But I'm thinking about at home. I saw this ad on television, Visiting Angels. Have you seen that?
I have.
Okay, that's just one of the many helpers, right? And that can be part of them coming into your home and this policy paying for that? Is that what I get?
Yes. Most policies will require that the agency that's providing care is licensed, certified. You basically want to have somebody who's been trained to care for you. That's how most of these contracts work. When you think about your future, when you look at that possibility and you think about somebody coming into your home, you certainly want to have somebody who's trustworthy and integral and really trained well to provide the care services that you might need.
Now, if I'm not spending a nursing home monthly benefit then I'm going to be not spending my complete overall benefits. So this is kind of a piecemeal way to extend my benefits if I can stay at home.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, when I'm thinking about this, contracts, are most contracts today, are they pretty good about the language and because definitions on morbidity products are always the issue. So when I'm thinking about long-term care, definitions of what care is. We know that it triggers the 2 ADLs. Now I have it triggered. I file my claim after my elimination period's been done. I'm ready to receive benefits. When I'm looking at that issue, how do I spend down my total benefit for extended care using like an assisted living as an example?
Well, let's back up a bit and look at that claims process itself, because more than likely when a care event happens, it is not you as the policyholder that is triggering that policy benefit. Oftentimes it's a family member or a friend who's reaching out to the producer, the advisor, or the carrier to say, we have determined that mom or dad or my husband or my spouse needs care. And there is a set of documents that really has to be completed. So it's the physician that will first determine whether or not the client is ADL dependent. And then there are documents that the carrier, the insurance company, will provide where the facility providing care will complete, the policyholder or family member will complete, and the client's physician will complete as well. So there are a number of moving parts to that process, Steve.
Is that involved? Is the paperwork really deep?
You know, I don't think that it's any more so than some of the claims forms we see in our other types of insurance. You know, health insurance, your homeowner's insurance. I mean, it's lengthy in that the insurance company wants to evaluate that a true care event has happened and that it's truly time for the care event. And remember, long-term care is something that we anticipate will exceed more than 90 days. If somebody's had, a fall and they're in a facility perhaps for a 30-day period for rehabilitation, that's not really considered long-term care. This type of protection is meant to be there for you for the long haul. And so that 90-day typical is what we see for a waiting period.
Have you seen, and I don't know their stats on this, are there certain carriers that seem to have a more stellar reputation on paying benefits and claims than others?
You know, I can tell you that of the carriers that I've worked with, they've been some of the biggest in the industry, and they've been some of the pioneers in the long-term care space. And so you absolutely want to make sure that you're working with a carrier that is well known in this long-term care market, that has had experience in claims history. And though we necessarily see statistics that they provide from a claim perspective, you certainly know if somebody's been riding this business 30 years, 20 years, 25 years, that they're a carrier you want to look at.
Do I care about ratings?
Ratings are important from the standpoint that you want to deal with a quality company. And I'm not saying that carriers that are rated B are not quality, but in this particular space, my comfort level is looking at carriers that are A rated or better.
Remember, the whole industry's contracted. We're just getting smaller. There's only a few carriers left. When we come back from the break, we're going to discuss long-term care standalone policies and lay out the difference between comprehensive and reimbursement coverage. And don't forget, you can request the long-term care manual from Backroom Technician right on our website, downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com, or just sign up for the 30-day free trial offer from Backroom Technician yourself at brtnow.com/trialsignup.aspx. We'll be right back after the break.
Take a close look at your hard-earned dollar. How do you think your money's doing? Are you keeping an eye on it? Is it protected from taxes, inflation, and market risk? Over time, those Washingtons could become Franklins. With tax-advantaged indexed universal life, from one of the largest distributors of Index Universal Life, Ash Brokerage.
Well, welcome back. I'm Steve Savant with Maria Sarchi. And remember, you can watch all our episodes of Let's Get Down to Business, including my weekly consumer show, Steve Savant's Money, the name of the game, right out at ashbrokerage.com. Just click on the show logo. It'll take you right out to our homepage. And just a heads up, before moving forward with any of the ideas you hear on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, as well as your broker-dealer compliance officer. Well, let's get down to business. We're talking about long-term care standalone policies, the difference between reimbursement and comprehensive, or sometimes people just say reimbursement and what? Indemnification. There's a lot of argument here, and I'm always thinking, is the industry moving more towards reimbursement or is it heading for indemnification?
You know, Steve, I think it's a personal preference. And what I've seen in this market, in the standalone long-term care policies, the more traditional solutions, absolutely reimbursement. In the early 1990s, we saw more solutions with the indemnity-based. And today, in some different segments of our solutions, such as accelerated benefit or linked benefit, we are seeing indemnity make a comeback. But for the purpose of what we're talking about here today, these traditional or standalone long-term care reimbursement is the way that they've all been designed.
Now, when I'm looking at the difference between, if I'm looking at, I understand reimbursement, I had an expense, I'm being reimbursed for that.
Yes.
And it's within the policy provision.
Sure.
Oh, I'm identifying, once I trigger the events, they're giving me a flat benefit, they're not asking for receipts, it's done. But comprehensive, what does that mean? Is that different from those two items?
Well, it is, because reimbursement and indemnity are the way that the policy proceeds are given to the individual. Comprehensive is a different aspect. Here we're talking about the ability to pivot between facility care, in-home care, assisted living. Again, looking at the evolution of the LTC marketplace, in the early days you had policies that were nursing home only. You had some policies that were in-home care only. And my suggestion to any individual looking at this type of protection is to look at a comprehensive plan, something that gives them the opportunity to pivot, where they can look at nursing or in-home or assisted living facility and really leave that type of flexibility to the family.
Now, when you talk about comprehensive, I'm thinking of a person, I'm in assisted living, but I had to go and punt and go to a hospital. Then I had some care there, I'm back out again. I'm not going to do well in assisted, now I got to punt and go back into maybe a nursing home. Comprehensive is taking all those incidences, those events into its thinking?
Yes, they do. And that's important because we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what kind of care we're going to need or when we might need it. So having the flexibility to know that you have a protection plan that allows you to choose from any of the above, I would think would be important to somebody.
When I think about the traditional reimbursement, and I'm thinking again, I'm fantasizing about my own retirement now. And by the way, doing this show is just, for me, it's very therapeutic. I'm just trying to fantasize about how my golden years are going to turn out. When I look at my age at 80, and I'm hoping I'm still at assisted living, I'm thinking, how do you do reimbursement for it? She's coming in 2 to 3 times a week to support my wife and I, or what does that look like?
Well, let's do some basic numbers just to paint a picture. If we had coverage at $6,000 a month, and because I was only receiving part-time care and it was costing $2,000 a month. If I had a 3-year benefit plan, because I was elongating my benefit pool, instead of having just that 3-year benefit plan, I could have 6 years or 9 years worth of coverage. So think of it as a pool of money approach, and you can control how much of that benefit you're tapping into because of the reimbursement nature of the policy.
Okay, so I'm just thinking about my policy that my wife and I have right now, and I'm not going to name the carrier because they didn't pay for the show. So I want to talk about that, and I'm thinking I have a $420,000 all-in total benefit.
Okay.
I have the inflation rider, and I'm set up with a quality company, one of the top 6 in the United States. Big name. And I'm sitting there at $7,000 my monthly benefit for Arizona. And so if I sit there and I only have, like you said, my assisted living is going to cost me $2,000, I'm stretching what I thought would have been in my 5-year plan at $420,000. It could be 7 years, it could be 8 years. So it gives you that flexibility. I think the reason I want to bring this up, Maria, is because I don't think not only do our advisors not get that, but even though this is an advisor program, we have about 18% of our viewership is consumer, and I think consumers don't know this. Oh, it's not, you're not losing that you're actually elongating your actual benefits, and so this could be a lot longer than what you think you're paying.
True. Steve, we have to be champions of this type of protection. We have to be able to explain it so that the consumer understands what it is and how it's designed to work. And there have been, unfortunately, many times where you will see something in mainstream media that really doesn't paint that full picture of what care planning is, which is why, as you say at the top of every segment, it's important to consult a professional. It's important to talk to your advisor, your tax professional, so that you get that big picture. Ultimately, making the informed decision is the most critical part of all of this.
I'm kind of interested in, can I use assisted living and pay like my children? Could they take care of me, or do they have to be a licensed person, a bonded person? Do they have to be professional?
With many of these reimbursement programs, the idea is that immediate family is not providing the care. And so there is an expectation that it's someone who works for a facility or for an agency. Some of them will permit, some of these contracts will permit for a neighbor to come in and provide care, especially if it's something like basic housework or preparation of meals. But more times than not, spouse, children, they're not able to provide care.
So unless they're a professional, unless your children or your people that you're related to are into this profession, that may not be able to be used for your benefits.
Correct. And it's important that if that is a key benefit driver in the protection that you're looking for, that you talk about that with the person who's helping you design your plan. Because there are some solutions in the indemnity model that can fit that need.
Okay, well, the reason I bring this up is because this is all the flexibility we're talking about. I want to know everything that we can do. I want to know what plan provides for it, and I want to be able to put my plan in motion based on my behaviors and what I think is going to be my future attitude towards my living in my golden years. Remember, you can read all my online insurance news commentary, advisor blogs, and articles on producersweb.com, as well as my answers to consumer questions at the Insurance Library. Don't forget, you can view any of our past episodes right on our on-demand video section located at downtobusiness.ashbrokerage.com. And don't forget, You can always follow me on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, or just email me at steve.savant@ashbrokerage.com. And remember, you could be wiser as an Ash Brokerage advisor. I'm Steve Savant. See you tomorrow.